Hello there, welcome back to buildqueue. This is going to be part 8 in a multi-part series about building Unity projects with Jenkins, and in this part we're going to be going over setting up a Mac agent. So why do we need to set up a Mac agent? Well, if we want to be able to deploy to the App Store, we're going to need to have our build pipeline run on a Mac device. Well, actually, let me back up just a little bit. Half of this build pipeline is still going to be running on our original built-in node. We can still use our Unity editor on our built-in node. However, it's not going to be able to sign the application. It's not going to be able to get it ready for release to the App Store. If you can recall, whenever we were setting up our build pipeline for Android, the final products were an APK file for side-loading builds and an AAB file for deploying to the Google Play Store. Well, whenever we build our Mac project with Unity, it's going to build not the IPA file that we need. The IPA is what gets released to the App Store. It's going to build an Xcode project. And whenever it builds our Xcode project, we need to run Xcode to sign our project and get it ready for release. Now, before we get started with setting up our Mac agent, let's go over what is needed, because I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of money that goes into getting these kind of things set up. When it comes to hardware, you're going to need a Mac device with Mac operating system. So that can be in the form of a MacBook, it can be a Mac Studio, it can be a Mac Mini, any of those kind of products will work. If you would like to test out the projects that you build on the target hardware, then you're going to also need an iPhone, an iPad, or if you're very ambitious, a Vision Pro. That's a rather tall order, but sadly that's also not it, because that's only the hardware. There's also a little bit of software costs that we have to cover too. This first piece of software that I'm going to recommend is optional, but it's something that I personally have to use because, as you can see behind me, there's a server rack, and I have my Mac Mini over there on that as a part of it, and I don't want to have a lot of extra peripherals on my server rack, so I set up VNC server on my Mac device, and then from my workstation I use VNC viewer to connect. So that's one piece of software that you do have to buy if you have a similar situation to myself. The next thing isn't necessarily software directly, but it does fall along the same vein. You need to have an Apple developer account, and an Apple developer account costs $100 a year or $99 a year, one of those. I believe that should about do it for all the cost, and I know that's quite a high barrier of entry for a lot of people. I'll keep most of my personal opinions about Apple to myself, but I do wish that it was more accessible as a developer for their platform. Now, with all that said, I've had to put together a lot of build pipelines for iOS products for work, so I've learned quite a few things along the way. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's go ahead and start with setting up this Mac agent. So I went ahead and opened up VNC Viewer. I haven't selected one to log into yet, but as you can see, I have my own personal account here, and then I have my buildqueue account. What you need to do first on your Mac device is go ahead and set up a user for Jenkins. Mine's just called buildqueue, but you can have one and just name it Jenkins. You're going to need to supply these credentials eventually with your build pipeline whenever you want to deploy things to this server. Now, if you need to, you can go ahead and pause and create your own Jenkins user account. All right, so after you've created your user account, you go ahead and sign into it, and you'll be brought to the desktop. Now, I went ahead and put two different folders here. So the first one I put here is Jenkins. This one's currently empty. They're both empty right now, actually. The Jenkins folder is going to house a lot of my configurations for my Jenkins agent. So that's where I'm going to be pointing my Jenkins agent to. And then this Jenkins builds folder, whenever I create a Xcode build from my Jenkins server that's running on Windows, it's going to export the build contents to this folder here. And we're going to need to set up some special permissions in order for it to do so. So what is so special about this Jenkins build folder? Well, if I select get info on it, wait for everything to pop up. VNC viewer makes things a little bit slow, by the way. You can see from this pop-up that this Jenkins build folder is a shared folder. And what that means is that basically any user account that's logged into this or SSH'd into this server can read and write to this directory. And our Unity build pipeline for Xcode is going to be exporting the contents of the build to this directory. So we need to make sure that this is a shared folder. In order to create a shared folder, you'll select the Apple icon in the upper left-hand corner, select System Settings. In the search bar, type in Sharing, and then look for File Sharing. Make sure that File Sharing at the top is enabled, and then select the eye icon next to it. Now, I went ahead and already set mine up, so what you want to do is you want to select the plus symbol here underneath the shared folder section. You'll select the folder that you want to be a shared folder. In my case, Jenkins builds. You'll select Open, and then you'll highlight the folder that you want to expand permissions to, and then over on the right hand side, if you don't see any users, you'll select the plus symbol, and then you'll specify whichever users that you want to have access to this folder. And remember to keep security in mind if you need to have this in a more locked down environment. So maybe you don't want to add everyone to this, but for me, this works for now. And then you select Done. Now, I think that's all that we needed to preemptively do, so let's go ahead and set up the agent now. So you're going to want to open up Safari. You'll want to type in the address to your Jenkins server. You'll want to sign into your Jenkins server. Select Manage Jenkins, select Nodes, add a new node. I'm going to name this one iOS agent for the node name, and then select Permanent Agent, and then select Create. So the first thing that we need to set up, remote root directory. This is the first folder that I created, so I'm going to right click on my Jenkins folder here, get the information. I'm going to right click the where property, and then I'm going to copy as path name. I'm going to paste the remote root directory into here. This one is just at users, buildqueue, desktop. Under usage, we don't want to use this as much as possible, only when jobs with the label expression matching this node. We only want this to handle certain jobs. All the other default settings are perfectly fine, so go ahead and click save. Okay, and now we can see that an agent has popped up here. Let's go ahead and connect this agent. So select iOS agent, and go ahead and copy this first option here. Run agent from command line, Unix. If this copy isn't working here, then go ahead and highlight everything here. Right click, copy, and then you're going to want to open up a terminal. You're going to want to paste this all in here, press enter, and this isn't valid currently. So let's go ahead and change one thing real quick. So you're going to go back to Manage Jenkins. You're going to select Security under the Security section, and this is going to be an inbound agent. There are two different ways that you can have agents connect. It can be either from your controller, or it can be from the server itself. The server can connect an agent to a controller, or the other way around. So here we're going to select Fixed, and the default port is 50,000. So I'm typing in 50,000 and then save. And then if we come back over here, it says connected. So our agent is connected now. And just to verify, if we come over to nodes and we get some more information about our device. So yes, everything's connected now. And some of you may have caught this already, but whenever I copied the command from Jenkins for setting up my agent on the Mac device, it didn't actually use my Jenkins folder here on desktop. It just put it onto the desktop, because if we come back and check the command that we put in, the work directory was set to users, buildqueue, desktop. For our use case, this isn't necessarily going to create an issue. It's just all the agent configuration is here inside this remoting folder on the desktop. Otherwise, this would have just been dumped into the Jenkins folder here. If you absolutely need the Jenkins agent to be installed in a certain location, you can change the location to wherever it is that you need. But for my use case, it's perfectly fine here on the desktop. So I'm just going to continue with it like this. So that is the Mac agent setup. So this is a rather short one compared to the usual videos that I make, and the reason why is because there are many different ways that setting up a Mac agent can go wrong. So I want to leave this video dedicated to addressing any of those issues. So if you're having problems, my contact information is in the description, or if you want to leave a comment down below, I can go ahead and try my best to address any issues that anyone may face with this. I remember whenever I was setting this up for myself for the first time, I had quite a few issues with it. So I don't know if there's anything that I have preemptively ahead of this video recording set up where things went rather smoothly this time for me. So again, please be open and transparent. If you have any issues with this, let me know. I want to go ahead and make some corrective actions if needed. With all that said, thank you for joining me for part 8. And in part 9, we're going to be getting started with setting up our build pipeline for the iOS platform. So please stick around for that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.